The sun is shining in the studios and the Nillis Studio North and the Nillis Studio South, which is in Orlando, Florida. Scott, do they have such things as the dog days of winter? We should maybe rename the dog days of summer dog days of winter.
I think they do in Australia.
Oh,
The dingo
yeah.
days of winter, mate.
Oh, boy.
No, no, there's no dog days here. It was gorgeous today. It was 82. It was
Oh,
lovely.
yeah.
Spent the day at the pool.
Hmm.
I have a 21-month-old grandson, and it was pool day today. There was
Oh,
no
boy.
talk of hockey down here today.
No talk of hockey, but yeah, the sun has not shone up here for a very long time now. It's either one or the other, ladies and gentlemen. By the way, this is Game On Hockey with on the Mighty 790 KFGO. It's a hockey show. We're going to talk weather for a minute or two because when the sun shines, it's 25 below. When the sun does not shine and it's cloudy all the time, it's 25 above. What do you prefer, Eric Johnson? What do you prefer in this weather scenario?
Oh yeah, put me in the 25 above and no sun.
Okay.
But I do appreciate a little bit of sunshine, but I'd rather have the 25 above.
And looking at Scott's face, a little bit of sun beaming on him today. He's got a little suntan going.
Well, for him, it's below zero either way.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah. Below zero Celsius. But indeed. Well, Scott, we do have a very jam-packed show today. We have Brad Schlossman, the great writer for the Grand Forks Herald, who covers UND. He really is. And why he's still in Grand Forks, he's had opportunities to go elsewhere, and he stays because he loves Grand Forks. So we love him for that. But this weekend, little UND versus the University of Minnesota Duluth, the 6th place versus the 7th place teams in the NCHC. And we have Bruce Siskey, the play-by-play guy for the Bulldogs, joining us after Brad Schlossman throws all sorts of statistics towards us. So we'll have a fun time. But we're going to start the conversation here. This week, Gino Odjick passed away at age 52, an enforcer in the National Hockey League. In your years of covering the National Hockey League, which is now in the 40s, over 4 decades, you've dealt with each and every one of these guys called the enforcers. Now, that's my nickname on the radio stations, the enforcer. I ain't an enforcer like those guys were. But tell us about the people these guys were. You've met them all. Bugard, Odjick, down the line. Tell about your experience with those guys.
Incredibly different people than their on-ice personas, every single one of them. Perhaps one of the nicest people I've ever met in hockey was Jimmy McKenzie, who relished the term goon. And Jim McKenzie to this day is still scouting, still works in the National Hockey League. You will walk by him and it looks like he's growling at you. But the reality is that Jim McKenzie may be the nicest guy, top 10 nicest guys I dealt with in hockey. Gino Odjick was in that group. Gino is one of the great native hockey players, Indigenous players to ever play in the National Hockey League. An incredibly nice man off the ice. He had a job to do. It was his job. And I'm so sick to my stomach of the number of these guys who have passed away early in their lives and shouldn't have. And it's sad, and I don't get it. I don't know why. And I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to try to sit here and give some kind of diagnosis as to why this is happening. But the reality is these are really nice people, although you would never think that way when you watch them play hockey. But let me tell you a story about 2 guys, Jim McKenzie and Jay Wells. You may have heard them both. They played in the 80s and 90s. They were enforcers. There's a Winnipeg Jets, Los Angeles Kings game at the old Winnipeg Arena. And the third period's about to start. The Jets are ahead 5 or 6 to 1. The game's over. It's really not any big deal. And suddenly, Jay Wells steps off the bench for the Kings. So John Paddock's coaching the Jets, and he pats Jimmy McKenzie on the back and says, "Get out there and see what's going on." So McKenzie skates over, and they line up for the opening face-off of the period. And McKenzie tells the story afterward. I said, "Jimmy, what happened? You had a fight before they dropped the puck." And he said, "Well, I asked Jay, how's it going?" And Jay says, "Well, it's not very good. I haven't had a fight in 2 weeks. The coach is on my tail. I gotta pick somebody out here and go after them." And so Jimmy says, I looked at him and says, "Hey, you want to go?" Sticks and gloves are down, and the two are pounding away on each other. They got to the penalty box, and Jimmy McKenzie says, and we got there, and Jay goes, thanks, Jimmy.
Wow. Yeah, that was a different National Hockey League.
The whole thing was a setup. The two tough guys had a fight in a 6-1 game so that Jay would get in the good books of his coach.
Well, they did take care of each other. The one thing that, John Marks, who's a good friend, obviously a good UND guy, a good Manitoba man, as we all know John Marks to be. He said he fought Dave the Hammer Schultz. And the one thing there was an etiquette back in the day. He said when he hurt you, he stopped punching and he would hold you up. He would not let you fall to the ice because they didn't wear helmets in those days, and that fall could be somewhat deadly in some cases because they didn't wear helmets. And he said he made sure that they took care of each other. So there was a rule, or what's the word I'm looking for? A book of etiquette. Yeah, a book of etiquette between the fighters in the National Hockey League back in the day, wasn't there?
Well, go to YouTube and look at the fight between Colton Orr and George Peros, the last one. And Orr catches Peros flush on the chin, just drills him, and Peros is out on his feet. And Colton drops him to the ice slowly so he can go down, and then starts waving for the trainer.
Yeah.
And he said afterward he felt sick about it. The point of the fight wasn't to hurt anybody. The point of the fight was to get everybody going. His team, George's team, was the Canadians and the Leafs, and it was to get everybody rolling. And he caught Peros with the sucker punch right in the end of the chin, and he was out cold. And that's, as Colton said, that's the last thing I ever wanted to do to George, because they were friends off the ice.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what we want to do every week. We want to get people going on a Thursday night, each and every Thursday, 5:30 in the mighty 790 KFGO. This is Game on Hockey. Travis Dunn, Scott Taylor, with a plethora of great guests. And of course, today, Brad Schlossman, Grand Forks Herald, talking UND hockey, and Brad and Bruce Hiskey, the play-by-play guy for the University of Minnesota Duluth, to be our guests, and Danny Carrolls with Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy U15 team will be joining us around 6:20, somewhere in that ballpark. But again, a big thank you to our sponsors for making this happen. So Scott and I get to do this. The Nillis Law Firm, who sponsors our studio, the Golf Center in Grand Forks, Ralph Engelstad Arena, the Sioux Shop in Ralph Engelstad, and of course online, thesiouxshop.com. Dave Noah, Remax Legacy Realty, Jarrell's Hockey World, and the Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy. We definitely appreciate their sponsors. You can follow us. The text call number here at KFGO, by the way, is 35270, and follow me at Twitter at Travis G. Dunn1 and Scott Taylor at S. Taylor Sports. We talk about this hockey game this weekend, and you're going to get filled in by Brad Schlossman here in a few minutes. The sixth place Bulldogs are 1 point ahead of the seventh place UND Fighting Hawks. But good news, Reese Gaber and Chris Jandrick were both nominated for to be part of the Hobie Baker finalist situation. So Reese Gaber, who you know quite well.
Yes, Reese Gaber, a Manitoba hockey player. And when we get Bruce Siskey on, I want to ask him about two of the players on his team, Matthew Thiessen, the goaltender, and Kyle Bettens. Kyle Bettens has always been a bit of a phenom in this part of the world, and we'll see how Kyle's doing tonight. So proud of Reese Gaber, a guy that we've had on often. You've had him on Around the Rink, and you've had him on Game On. Just a tremendous young man, and a guy who really cares about the game and loves the game. And I feel badly. If we had been thinking about this at the start of the season, and when we go through our guests, we think about times we're going to get guys on, and we would have thought that by the end of January, talking to the University of Minnesota Duluth broadcaster and the University of North Dakota hockey writer, we'd be talking about two teams in the top 3 or 4 in the conference, getting set for the playoffs, thinking about the Frozen Four, talking about their journey to the top of the standings. And instead, and I'm not being facetious, we're going to talk about the dregs of the NCHC tonight. Yep. And that's something I never expected we would do back in September and October, especially after I watched UND take apart the University of Manitoba Bisons in that opener. And I thought that was a pretty good hockey team, and their play has surprised me.
Yeah, very much so. Well, and statistics, as you know, Scott, they tell the story. UND is 60th in the NCAA in save percentage, which is basically telling the story. And University of Minnesota Duluth can't score. So one of those is going to be the immovable object this weekend, and one of them is going to get either going to score a lot of goals. It'll probably end up being 10-9 games. But last week, Western Michigan comes to town, and they were getting beat 5-2 in the third period. and they came back to win 7-6. And the winning goal were 3 UND players below the goal line. And the guy in front of the net wide open. So just some mental errors that are happening, and hopefully they'll figure things out. But we'll talk to Brad about that. And there's a statistic he'll share as well that if and I don't know exactly how they, because their power play is number 2 in the country, their face-offs are very highly rated, so on and so forth. They would be 19-4 if they had any decent goaltending whatsoever. So that's really been the key to the UND season this year. No goaltending, but like you've always said, playoff hockey should be called what?
Goalie. You can't call it goalie, but that's playoff hockey. And obviously this season is regular season hockey. And it's interesting that you say what you do about both UND and UMD, because I was looking at my pal Matthew Thiessen's numbers, and his record is 5-6-0. And his save percentage is 9.28, and his goals against is 2.15. That should win you a lot of hockey games.
Yep.
You should be able to win a lot of games with those numbers. So obviously goal scoring in UMD, goaltending in UND, and this weekend should be interesting.
Yep, and I'll be up there with Tim Hennessy making the call on the Home of Economy radio network, of which KFJO is one. So the call will be tomorrow night at 7:05, pregame at 6:30. And then on Saturday it will be 5:30 pregame, 6:05 puck drop as Tim Hennessy in his 44th year of calling games. And make sure to stay tuned, by the way, to KFJO after UND men's basketball versus Kansas City at 6:30. So make sure to stay tuned for that after the show. Well, we'll tell you what. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll have that great guy called Brad Schlossman join us and give you all those statistics and fill you in, and not just UND hockey, but the college hockey world as it is. He does it so very well. For Scott Taylor, I'm Travis Dunn on a beautiful Thursday night. A little gloomy, but it's warm. We like it warm. Just a little sun would be a nice thing. But we'll take a break. When we come back, you'll be continuing on the great conversation. Thank you for tuning in. This is Game on Hockey on the Mighty 790 KFJO and 104.7 FM. mid-April, when spring we hope will make a great appearance. From the Nilles Law Firm studio, by the way, Nilles Law Firm established in the early 1900s. The Nilles Law Firm provides legal services in more than 10 areas of practice, including business and corporate law, estate planning, wills and trusts, probate, commercial litigation, adoption services, as well as real estate. A division of Nilles Law Firm is Northern Title, which provides complete closing and escrow services along with title insurance policies for all types of real estate transactions in North Dakota as well as Minnesota. Call Nilles Law Firm at 701-237-5544 or look them up on the World Wide Web at nilleslaw.com. I'm in the Nilles Law Studio North, and Scott is in the Nilles Law Firm Studio South. And in Grand Forks, North Dakota, we open the gate and we welcome in our good friend Brad Schlossman, the star of the UND Hockey Podcast. How do you like that for an introduction, Brad?
Fantastic.
Scott, I'll let you fire away.
As I mentioned to Travis earlier, if you'd asked me in October if we were seeing Minnesota Duluth and UND, it would be a late season playoff battle. That is not what is happening this weekend. Why are these teams where they are, and what happened?
On Duluth's side, I'm not shocked that offense has been an issue. When I looked at their lineup at the start of the year, when I do my preseason rankings, I kind of put together line charts for all the teams and look at them and try to analyze them. And one thing that jumped out to me was that they don't have a ton of depth in scoring. I thought that the Biondi, James, and Olsen line was ready to be a number one line in the NCHC. I think last year they started as the third line, but that was the line that was scoring all year for them. So they move up, and then their second line, you're looking at a guy like Isaac Howard and Steve, some freshmen. And I thought, if they can stay 100% healthy, they can get by. But if they have injuries within their top six, they don't have a lot of guys who can go up and play that role. And what's happened is they've had some guys who haven't produced, even where I thought they were. So I think, Isaac Howard has 2 goals right now. That's for a first round pick. I never would have guessed that. Biondi's been hurt and he's out now. He wasn't producing, at high levels when he was in. He's a really good player. If you were to tell me in February, it's January now, Duluth is struggling to score and this is where they're at, I'd say a little surprised, but not shocked. You could kind of see it coming. On the other side now, if you were to say this is what North Dakota's goals against are, I'd say, I don't see them giving up that many goals. That has been a real surprise to me. And I think when you look at their D core, it's a team that doesn't have a freshman on D. They're older. A lot of these guys were the guys that played last year when UND went on that run down the stretch to win the league. If Sanderson was playing every night, those nights, I'd say, hey, look, they lost Jake Sanderson. He did a lot for them. He wasn't playing in those games. He was hurt. They went on that whole run without him. And obviously goaltending's been an issue. Drew DeRitter had 920 his last 2 years at Michigan State. So he's done this before. Obviously he's going through some struggles now, and Jacob Helston is struggling. And I just did not envision them having struggles at that position. So Duluth, I'm not super shocked that offense has been a challenge at times. North Dakota, I am surprised that they've given up as much as they have because,
Yeah, it becomes almost unexplainable. By the way, this is Brad Schlossman. He's the writer for the Grand Forks Herald, covering UND hockey on a regular basis, as well as a UND hockey podcast, which I recommend highly that you listen to. That's where I get all my information for doing color on Fridays and Saturdays, by the way. So thanks, Brad, for doing all my research for me. But, we talk about older defense core. First of all, you can't put everything on one guy's shoulder, but when the guy that's supposed to be the horse for your defenseman makes a kind of a bad play and ends up getting ejected from a game, not only the Friday, but then a lot of the entire Saturday night. And then the veterans that you have on the game-winning goal, 3 guys below the red line, and a Western Michigan player in the slot by himself. You know, a lot of fingers could be pointed. I understand that the game happens in a very quick period of time, but some of the mistakes they're making are just they're inexcusable. Would that be the best way to say it?
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely there's D zone coverage issues, and I think it's definitely not on one guy's shoulders, because when you look at a lot of the goals that are being scored, they are from prime scoring areas. It's one of the confusing parts or tough to explain parts is like shots as a whole. UND's seventh in the nation in fewest shots allowed. Like bad hockey teams give up 30 plus shots a night, right? Like
Yeah.
bad hockey teams are getting hemmed in their zone. These guys really aren't. It feels like, but when they do give up one, it's an egregious one. And it feels like when they do give up one, the goalie's not bailing them out. Is not making that key save where in a game, if a D man makes a mistake, the other team comes down, the goalie makes a save, you forget about that mistake ever happening. You go home and completely forget that play happened. Now, if it ends up in the back of the net, everybody goes home remembering who made the mistake and what it was. And so I think it's a compounding issue here. I think there have been times when the goalies haven't got a lot of help. They've left him out to dry for sure. Too many grade A's, and they're also not helping out the D by making that extra big save. So, I think they can be better in both areas. We've seen flashes of it, and they just need to be more consistent in it.
On the bright side, Reese Gaber is in the Hobie Baker conversation.
Yeah, he was one of UND's two nominees that they put forward. It's kind of for a fan vote. The big picture at the end of the day, there will be a group picking out the 10 finalists. Does he have a shot to win it this year? I think it's a long shot. Even Chris Chandrick's been one of the top D-man scorers in the country. He's probably a long shot. Another note on that race, I think it's wide open. I don't know who the front runner is right now. Is it McAllister? Is it Poland? Is it Fantilli or one of the Minnesota guys? Are they going to rise up? But it's a numbers based award. So at the end of the day, who has the big numbers will probably win it. And right now, I think that award is wide open.
Speaking of wide open, and this is Brad Schlossman, who covers UND hockey, of course, for the University or for the Grand Forks Herald, and of course the UND hockey podcast. You've had a chance now to be through the NCHC and see the teams that are, the cream of the crop, or see everyone at this point. Who would you lean towards probably being the favorite to run out to lead the NCAA, to be in the NCAA tournament at this point from the NCHC?
To play in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Denver is in really good shape right now. St. Cloud State's in really good shape right now. Those two teams, I think, are definitely tournament bound. And then you hit a situation where you have a lot of teams that are trying to get in there. Western Michigan, after last weekend, really did themselves a favor. They're starting to move up and be in a good spot. UND is still able to make the tournament. That's why this weekend is, I think, critical for them, because it is not out of the realm that they can go get net large. I think if they, in the last 12 games here, if they go 9-3, they're probably going to be in position to make the tournament. 9-3 is not overwhelming. It's not like you're talking about a record that's, impossible to get. However, they need to show a type of consistency that they haven't yet this year to go 9-3 in that stretch. So it's doable. They do have to play better than they have.
So what's the schedule going forward now? You've got UMD this weekend.
Yeah, and then after that they go to Miami on the road. That's one you got to win those two games if you want to get to where you want to go to. They have a couple road series in Colorado. They play at CC and at Denver. Both are going to be tough series for them. CC's obviously significantly improved this year. They just went to St. Cloud and had a nice weekend. Denver is really tough place to play. And then they have two home series left, St. Cloud State and Omaha. So
it's hard to find 9 wins in that list.
with the type of consistency that UND showed this year, it is, but if they can get things going, I think this team is talented enough to put some scares into teams. Their issue is doing it on a consistent basis, and I don't think they've done that. I mean, at times they went and played Quinnipiac, who's lost one time all year, and they got behind 3 goals, and they made that up like it was nothing. They went and got behind Minnesota at Mariucci and scored 4 goals on that team, which is very good, like it was nothing. There are times when they can be really good, but like I said, it just feels like there's no consistency, and part of that is when you're allowing that many goals, no lead is safe for them. They have to find a way to get that goals against down, and if they do that, their other metrics are pretty good. They've hovered around number 10 in the nation in offense all year long. They've hovered top 3 in power play all year long. They've been around top 10 in penalty kill all year long. They've been around the top 10 in faceoffs all year long. Shots against, like all these categories line up to where if they figure out that defensive issue, they could be pretty good.
That's the voice of Brad Schlossman, who covers UND men's hockey. And Scott and I don't ever, we rarely take calls, but we're going to take this one. It's a goaltender question for the great Brad Schlossman. And Tom, you're on the line. Brad Schlossman's ready to answer.
Yeah, good evening, gentlemen. Thanks for the show. Brad, Obi Hedquist, is he ready to come in next year? And if so, I guess, do you think we would also pick up another for a 3rd year in a row, 5th year goalie transfer? I'll hang up and listen. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you. Hobie Hedquist, I haven't watched a lot, so it's really hard for me to know what level he's at right now. Goalies, you can look at their numbers in juniors, and sometimes it doesn't mean a ton because you don't know if they're playing for a team that doesn't play defense, in that league can be particularly hard to evaluate. I do think they will definitely get a goalie out of the portal for next year. I think they have to. I don't know if it'll be a 5th year senior necessarily. I do think they have to go out and find a portal goalie to compete, an older guy that's a proven guy. I don't know what year that will be. Ideally, maybe a guy with more than 1 year of experience. That being said, if there is a really, really high-end 5th year out there, I don't think they're going to turn them away. They need to find some guys that are going to, stop some pucks at a high level.
Yeah, and that's what it comes down to. Again, and in the last minute or so here, Brad, just what are your thoughts? What do you think is going to happen between the pipes, since that's the biggest topic of conversation for our UND Hockey Nation out there for the remainder of this season? We've seen them go with Helston. We've seen them go with the Ritter. We've seen them go with Johnson. Do you think they're going to pick one and just say, you know what, it's time to ride that horse, win or lose? We're going to go with the one guy. Do you think that'll happen?
That's kind of what I thought they would end up doing. But I don't know. That's a great question. It feels like every night you're going to the rink and you have absolutely no idea what you're going to see. You don't, on some nights the goalies have looked, they've looked fine. I think a former goalie once told me, even the best goaltenders are going to have rough days, 1 in 10. He told me Marty Brodeur has a tough day 1 in 10, but it cannot be 1 in 3. And it feels like it's the 1 in 3 right now. Yeah. And they need to get the goalies to have more consistent performances. What do they do? They go with Helston at home and DeRitter on the road, which is where their numbers have been. Helston's been the much better guy at home. DeRitter's been much better at road. Do you try that? I don't know. At this point, nothing will surprise me. I think they're looking for some sort of consistency there.
Scott, I'll let you ask the last question.
Bruce Siskey's joined us. I want to ask a question of both these guys. It's something that kind of gnaws at me constantly when you talk about all sports now in the NCAA. What's your opinion of the portal?
Let's go Brad first on that one.
For me, I as a whole, I like it in the sense that there's a few areas. I think as a athlete, when they get to school, there are a lot of teams that promise kids a lot of things in recruiting. And now you better live up to it, because, before it felt like it was a get this kid to campus and then you got him. He's stuck here. He's not going to sit out a year to transfer. Well, now, you better make the experience really good for the student athlete. And if it's not, they can go elsewhere. I think sometimes when kids make these decisions at age 16 or 17, sometimes maybe it's just not a good fit. And I don't know if it's great that, you make them stay at one place where it just, they're not feeling it. I think everyone's probably had kids who are non-athletes that have gone to colleges and said, this isn't for me. I want to go somewhere else. That happens to athletes. I think it's not a bad thing that they can go where they're at. For teams' perspective, I don't think you can build a team strictly with transfers. I think you got to bring in your recruits, and you have to mix in a few. I think if you don't mix in a few, you're losing out on an opportunity to get an older, experienced player that can help right away. If you look at these successful teams, almost all of them are being helped out by transfers. Denver won the national title last year, mostly kids they recruited. Who is their leading goal scorer? It was a fifth-year senior they got from Bowling Green, who scored a big goal, and it might have even been against the Bulldogs. Or was it the game before, Bruce, in the regional when Cameron?
That was the game before.
That was.
Yeah, Savoy had the winner against us.
Yeah, so Cameron Wright, big goal to get him out of the first round. They go and win the national title. But anyways, those are just some of my thoughts. We could probably do an entire hour on that, though.
Yeah, we really could. You know what we're going to do? We're going to do this. Bruce Siskey, the reason we know Bruce is on, by the way, for those who don't know, we do the show on Zoom up to YouTube Live. So we get to see Bruce's smiling face. We get to see Brad's smiling face. So we know when people join in. It's not that we guess. This is not to tell. We don't do it on telephone. The audio is much better. What we're going to do is this. We're going to let Mr. Brad Schlossman, and thank him very much, exit stage left. We'll take a commercial. When he come back, we'll carry on the conversation with Bruce Siskey, the play-by-play voice of the University of Minnesota Duluth Bulldogs. And boy, is he a happy camper these days. Brad, thanks so much. We really appreciate it. We'll see you at the rink tomorrow night.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Brad. Appreciate it.
You got it. That's the great Brad Schlossman who covers it so well. And of course, we'll be talking to Bruce Siskey here in a minute. Oh, by the way, this segment was also brought to you by the Ralph Engelstad Arena. Now, what's the date coming up here? This is against Duluth Friday, the Al Pearson Recognition Night. The man in the white cowboy hat. The white cowboy hat will be retired. Saturday night is one more shift with Matt Green. One more shift. T-shirts available at the Sioux Shop. Tickets available both nights at Ticketmaster.com. or the RAA box office, starting at just $39. And of course, when you're at the rink, you can go to the Sioux Shop where Bruce Siskey goes for all of his UND Fighting Hawks and Old Fighting Sioux hockey gear as well. But they have quarter zips, they've got football stuff, basketball stuff, volleyball, soccer T-shirts, and more. Or you can go to the SiouxShop.com. You can get that one more shift T-shirt, by the way, at the Sioux Shop in the Ralph Engelstad Arena. Well, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, the smiling face of Bruce Siskey, we'll be able to share that with everyone. But go to YouTube. Search Game on Hockey with Travis Dunn and Scott Taylor. You can see that smiling face. We'll take a quick commercial and be back just after this. You are indeed listening to Game on Hockey with Scott Taylor, Travis Dunn on a beautiful Thursday night on the Mighty 790 KFGO. On the Mighty 790 KFGO and 104.7 FM, Mr. Scott Taylor and myself, we do this each and every week. We appreciate Brad Schlossman joining us. The 7th place UND Fighting Hawks play the 6th place University of Minnesota Duluth Bulldogs, and joining us now is the play-by-play voice of those Bulldogs, Bruce Hiskey. Bruce, thank you for joining us. And did you ever think we'd be saying the 6th place against the 7th place at this point in the season?
If you'd have told me in September that this was going to be 6 versus 7 this weekend, I probably would have sent you for some sort of an examination. I would never have believed you. It's just, this is incredible. I like you watch it unfold and you don't even know what to say about it sometimes. It's just crazy. And I was talking to Brad Berry about this yesterday. I said, how well Scott Sandelin. These guys, I mean, roommates in college, teammates in the pros. For your two teams that have been powerhouses in this league to be going through this at the same time is, granted for different reasons, is absolutely incredible.
I looked at the numbers for a Winnipegger that plays goal for you, Matt Thiessen. His record is 5-6-0. His save percentage is, I think, .928, and his goals against is 2.15. That has to be problematic.
Well, that's the thing is, you'd like that goals against to be down more with how good a save percentage has been. He's been good. They've used him a couple different sections of the schedule. They had some illness and some injury going through the team. Zach Stejsko was one of those that was affected by that. And Thiessen got the net there for a while, and I thought he did very well with it. And they've come out of break. They gave it back to Zach, and Zach played, I thought, really well against Bemidji State. He was very good last Friday against Omaha. Quite frankly, if you take out the last 3 minutes of the Saturday game, Zach Stejsko might have been better on Saturday than he was on Friday. But then the last 3 minutes of that game happened, so his numbers are all wackadoodle again, and I have absolutely no idea who we're going to see in goal tomorrow night.
When you talk about the goaltending part of the equation, Bruce, if UND had a goaltender with a .92 save percentage, I think Brad Schlossman it'd be 19-4 at this point. So basically, It's a tale of two teams that are having, one that has a difficulty scoring, and the other one who has a difficulty stopping the scoring at the opportune times. Is that the best analogy we can share?
I think so, and I watched North Dakota as I have a couple times, and I don't I watched them defensively. They haven't been bad. And I've seen these goaltenders make important saves. The problem is, and you know this, you played the game. I've talked to Scott Sandelin about this before, and I'm sure Brad Berry would say the same thing. There are times that puck goes in the net, and you can tell the entire bench just goes, gone. And not being there, it's hard to get the sense of that happening to North Dakota, but look at the numbers. There's no way that this isn't happening to North Dakota. There are times that puck goes in the net, and every skater on that bench is thinking, "Oh, here we go again." We can't get that key save, that timely save. And Saturday is a great example of it. Get up 5-2, and yes, some glorious opportunities that Western Michigan generated. You don't take anything away from the Broncos, and you don't want to put some of those on that goaltender, especially making this first start in 600 days. But the reality is you got to stop something. At some point, you got to make a save. UMD has gotten that at times this year. They got it last Friday against Omaha. Zach Stejsko stopped a couple of breakaways and kept them in a hockey game they didn't start great in. And then he allows a bleeder, one that he'd love to have back in the last 7 minutes of the game that breaks the tie after UMD has stormed back to draw it level. Those are the timely moments, and I think both these teams have been at both ends of the rink to a certain extent have been missing it. Certainly for UMD, missing those timely goals and sometimes those timely saves. North Dakota more missing the timely saves, but there have been times this year they haven't gotten the goals when they needed them.
What do you expect this weekend? What do you expect to see? Brad said that the way things have gone for these two teams, it's probably going to be 10-9 on Friday night.
Western Michigan, I was telling somebody earlier, has played 3-7-6 games this season, 2-7-6 games. And then the one game against UMD where there was 6 goals in the first 9.5 minutes of the game, which was just crazy. I could see these games in, 2-1, 3-2 games just out of nowhere. I could see these games being 5-4, 6-5, 7-6 type games. The thing is, UMD doesn't play that way. They haven't scored at that rate. They've had a couple of 5-goal efforts. They haven't yet. They haven't put it together offensively. I'm not saying they can't, but we're getting at a point now where you are what you are. And what UMD is a team that doesn't score a lot of goals. So do I see UMD scoring 9 goals in a game this weekend? I don't care who the goaltender is. I don't. I just, to be honest about it. But can I see UMD grinding out a game or two here this weekend and trying to get the way they play, where they're suppressing shots and they're suppressing goals and they're winning a low-scoring game because that's their mantra? I can see that happening. I have no idea to expect this weekend, which I do know that it's going to be intense. It's going to be physical because it always is when these teams meet. And hopefully it doesn't go over the line because that's happened a few times over the years.
Yeah, it has. That's the Bruce. That's the voice of Bruce Siskey, the play-by-play voice of the University of Minnesota Duluth Bulldogs. I've met Bruce in person once, Scott, and that was in the Minneapolis airport on a Thursday morning when his team was going somewhere, and that's the only time I've ever met. And this is the first time we've seen each other face to face on a Zoom call. So I appreciate the opportunity this weekend to be up at the press box and hang out. He's rocking his Duluth Bulldog sweatshirt too, by the way. So if you're watching on Zoom, you definitely can. He's zooming in on that as well. So we appreciate that. But a quick update on Grand Forks. Obviously, Mr. Spicer made a choice to leave UND when all those guys came back for their super senior year. Talk about how he's developed over the course of this year.
I like what I've seen from him. I think he's gotten better, kind of week to week. He was scratched for one of the games earlier. I think it was one of the games out in Colorado, and he's played every game since, except when he's been injured. He was really starting to hit a stride before break. He got an injury that kind of set him back a little bit, but I think he's been good since he came back from break. I thought his line with Isaac Howard and Luke Johnson was maybe the most consistent line UMD had in that Saturday game in Omaha last weekend. So I'm interested to see with Jack Smith return to the lineup this weekend, what does Scott Sandelin do with these lines? Because, he could mix some things up, but I think I really think he wants to keep at least Isaac Howard and Cole Spicer together because they've got some chemistry. And, I know Cole's excited for this weekend. He's got a lot of family and friends that he's been trying to get tickets for these two games in Grand Forks. Obviously a homecoming for him. He talked about the first time he was able to skate on the ice at Ralph Engelstad Arena, he was a 9-year-old mite. And even then he realized how cool it was to be on that ice surface. And I think he's been, since he committed to UMD, he's had this thing circled and he's really looking forward to getting out there this weekend.
Well, we're looking forward to meeting again face-to-face in the press box at the Ralph. And who knows what we're going to get, but we'll get what we get and we'll enjoy every minute of it, won't we, Bruce?
Right. That's all you could do, right? We have no control up there of what happens on the ice. The coaches and players would love to, or the coaches and the ex-players up in the press box would love to do it for the players on the ice that can't. So we just got to sit up there and watch what happens and talk about it, which is what we'll do. We'll enjoy every minute of it.
Absolutely right. And it'll be great seeing you in person up there as well. We'll see you tomorrow night at the Ralph. The puck drops at 7:05. We'll wait and see what all unfolds. I do know this. There's two coaches right now with really sour faces, and I hope they both can find a way to make those faces happy ones. That's for sure.
I wonder if they commiserated this week about all the things that have gone wrong this season, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it's been so much for both these guys, right?
Yeah, I'd like to be in that dressing room just listening to that conversation. Bruce, thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow night. Thank you for joining Scott and myself on Game On the Mighty 790 KFGO.
You got it, guys. Anytime. Glad to do it.
It was a blast having you. Well, Scott, there you go. I mean, again, it's a tale of statistics tell the story. One can score, one can't score, one can't stop it from being scored. And you're right. It'll probably be a 10-9 game tomorrow night.
Well, I'm not right. That was Brad's prediction.
No, that's true. That's Brad's. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Well, that's okay. Take credit for it.
I just have never seen two historic powerhouses like Duluth and North Dakota.
Yeah.
In the situation that they're both in late January, and they're both in that situation for the complete opposite reasons. One can't stop it, one can't score it. It's going to be a great weekend. It might be the most fun you have all year.
I sure hope so. But you know what fun you can do? You can read that Jarrell's commercial. And if you're in Grand Forks at the game, you stop by Jarrell's. They have a great selection of all sorts of hockey gear. The one thing with the supply chain issues, they have it all. So if you'd read that, that'll be great as well. Fire away, my friend.
Put my glasses on for
Oh,
those
there you
watching
go.
on YouTube. It is the middle of the hockey season. That means Jarrell's Hockey World is the place for everything you need when it comes to the greatest game on ice. Jarrell's has knit beanies, mini sticks, the best hockey sticks in the game, all of the best protective equipment bags, even nets for road hockey or the backyard rink. And Jarrell's has Bauer and CCM clothing, skate guards, laces, tape, wax, pucks, even stick handling balls. In business for 50 years and the 2021 U.S. Bauer Retailer of the Year right here in our backyard. Jarrell's Hockey World, 1004 South Washington Street in Grand Forks. Call 701-775-0553 and add us at Jarrell's Hockey.
There you go. A message from Scott from the lovely city of Orlando, Florida. And we appreciate Scott joining us on Thursday. I appreciate you joining us on each and every Thursday. Eric Johnson's running the show back there. We're having a blast. I hope you're enjoying the conversation about the great weekend in Grand Forks and about the great game of hockey that we get to hang around with each and every weekend. Well, take a break. We come back. Gordy Tumbles.
By the way, before you go,
yeah.
before you take the break, we're not getting Danny Carroll's.
No, we're getting Gordy Tummelson.
Bad cattle, sick cattle. See, that's what it's like living in North Dakota and Manitoba. The hockey coach had to go back to the farm because he has sick cattle and the vet is attending.
That's perfect.
That conversation wouldn't take place between people from the Minnesota Wild and the Chicago Blackhawks.
Darn right. We do things different here on this show called Game on Hockey and the Mighty 790 KFGO. For Eric, for Scott, for Travis, we'll take a quick break. We come back. Gordy will be joining us. This is indeed Game on Hockey. This is on the Mighty 790 KFGO and 104.7 FM. Boy, the great stuff this guy did. And there's still more to come. I guess more records or more music that he was working on. So we appreciate his talents and being able to share it with you on a Thursday night. But Scott has a quick message from the Golf Center in Grand Forks, and then we'll get on with Gordy Tummelson.
Now that you brought your golf game indoors for the winter, remember that the Golf Center has a complete line of golf simulators, hitting mats, nets, and training aids in stock to help make you a better player in the off season. Garmin R10, Bushnell, Launch Pro, and SkyTrack will help you keep that sweet swing in its groove all winter long. The Golf Center also has a full inventory of bags, FootJoy golf shoes, the best golf balls on the market, and clothes to make you look great on the course. Give Brian and the guys a call or stop by the Golf Center at 3001 South Columbia Road in Grand Forks. Any golfer in Grand Forks knows that address by heart. Call them at 701-775-0019. The Golf Center in Grand Forks, North Dakota.
Well, Gord, highlights for the week.
Highlights for the week. We've got the Minot Wolves 15U AA hockey team coming to Pilot Mound, Manitoba on Sunday afternoon at 2:00. So that's going to be a big highlight. We get the guys up there from Minot every once in a while. It's a fun day, and it's a great. And they've got a really good AA team, so it's always a good thing.
And the other teams are traveling to other far destinations, I would anticipate.
Oh, we got actually we got a couple of games in Pilot Mound. The girls are playing in Pilot Mound against RHA, it's the rink, and our U17 boys are away. I guess they're in Edmonton, and our U18 guys are away with a game out west. Can't remember which place, but they're out west doing something important. So there you go.
Always doing something important. I mentioned to Eric that this is something that only happens in Manitoba, North Dakota. Maybe if they were doing a hockey show in Montana or Wyoming. But Danny Carrolls was supposed to be the guest tonight. You have graciously filled in because Danny has an emergency on the farm, and that's a big farm, that Carl's farm. And he's got a couple of sick cattle. He's got the vet in. That doesn't happen in Toronto or Vancouver.
No, it doesn't. When he called me, I said, "How many are sick?" He says, "There's a bunch." And I said, "Oh my gosh, I don't know what a bunch is. You know, it could be 10%. It's
City slickers like us."
Yeah, well, there you go. So yeah, it's kind of it's unfortunate, but I think the vet's in there fixing them up, so they'll be okay.
Well, we sure hope so, and get him back. Get him on the show in the next couple of weeks. If they want to find more information about Pilot Mound Hockey Academy, how do they do so, Gordy?
PilotMoundHockeyAcademy.com. And we do have some ID dates coming up, April 15, 16, 22, 23. Check out the website.
Beautiful. Make sure to do so. That's Pilot Mound Hockey Academy. We appreciate Gordy being on, giving us updates each and every week. Brad Schlossman, we appreciate him. Bruce Hiskey, Bulldogs Hockey, Scott Taylor, Gordy Tummelson, me, Eric. We sure appreciate you listening to Game on Hockey in the Mighty 790 KFJ. We'll do this again next Thursday. Please tune in. Bye for now.
Bye, everybody.